In this video, we're going to look at the innovation planning process. Now, when we think of business, we think of processes, we think of routines that the business managers have put in place, which leads to efficiency and functionality within the business. Often when we consider innovation, we think of it as something which happens spontaneously and something which just occurs. But in fact, many businesses set processes in place to try and generate innovation, generate ideas. So, for example, they may have constant reviews of their own work to see if there are better ways of working or changes they can bring about, which will innovate the working practices within the business. So there is a planning process for innovation, and that's what we're going to consider in some classes on this topic in this module. So let's start by looking at companies and suggest that companies must continuously innovate in order to maintain their leadership and competitive advantage within the industry. The fact that a company is leading within a particular industry and is seen as the flagship of that industry doesn't mean it's going to continue ad infinitum. They may start to lag behind. They haven't got new ideas or new products, or perhaps their production processes are not keeping up to date with the latest technology. So companies are under pressure to innovate. And therefore, they respond to this by trying to bring about ways of working and ideas which will enable them to bring about the changes that are desired. Of course, successful organizations constantly seek out new opportunities for innovation and embed an innovation culture. I say of course because they are the successful companies, and if they're successful, they must be getting things right. They must be doing things correctly. They're successful. They're beating their competitors. If that's the case, the chances are that they are innovating. They're making changes, perhaps cost savings, or introducing new products, or generating growth from expanding into new markets. Whatever they're doing, that's generating success. So successful companies tend to be successful innovators. An innovation culture allows for planning processes that enable innovators to systematically and collaboratively explore opportunities. Innovation, sometimes we think of it as somebody coming up with a good idea, and often that is the case. But more than likely, within larger organizations, it will be a team. Somebody within the team will have an idea, and somebody else within the team will clarify the idea and add something to it, and someone else will, and eventually that group of people will meet. They will form a team. They will form some sort of collaborative environment within which the original idea, will grow and develop. So we can imagine that within some companies there will be an innovative culture where senior managers encourage people, perhaps on the shop floor, perhaps in middle management, in the offices, wherever, they will encourage them to think about better ways of working and ways in which costs can be reduced and perhaps sales increased. So let's talk about planning innovation. Well, according to Kumar in 2004, now this is quite a good article, and I think it's partially reproduced in the PDF library for you to access. But Kumar in 2004 suggested that robust planning processes that are commonly understood, continuously practiced, and collaboratively applied by innovation teams are likely to increase the success rate of innovations. So what he's suggesting is that there is a collaboration and a culture of innovation within organizations. And if that's the case, then those companies will be breaking new territory. Those companies will be introducing new products, introducing labor-saving technologies, better production processes, better logistical systems and delivery systems. They will be more innovative and, as I said earlier, therefore more likely to succeed. The growing industry in planning tools for research, analysis and ideation has provided a strong foundation for organizations to conduct effective innovation planning. There are many planning tools that are available. Many of them are online. They may range from just simply whiteboards where people may simply throw down ideas and talk about ideas. There are others which are more structured. It doesn't matter what the tools are. It's the commitment to the process that leads it to success or failure. If it's not supported, or if the participants are not fully behind it, then of course the process will fail. But in addition to the planning tools that we could talk about, analytical software systems, as I just partially suggested, and project management tools are some of the tools that help organizations develop innovative structures. And there is a growing array of these, not just from the big software companies like Microsoft and Google and Apple and so on, but smaller organizations are starting to put apps on the systems that will do some of the tasks and perhaps form a plug-in into a bigger app or into a more established piece of software, perhaps longer term or longer established piece of software. But it's all starting to emerge in front of our eyes in the early part of this century, and it's likely to continue. We're now into the 2020s just about, and we see now significant changes in the support levels that managers can get from software and expert systems. Innovation tools and processes identify and foresee trends and customer needs. These tools help match innovation to customer requirements. It could be that market research techniques, which simply collects data, the data is put into an app or into a statistical package, which turns it into information, albeit with qualifications. We can't see the future, but predictions can be quite robust. Having said that, there are trends perhaps which are strongly determined, and the statistical analysis suggests that the trend is worth pursuing. And that's an aid to decision making, so that the managers can go about innovating on the basis of some research. And that's, of course, only possible because the software tools are available. Now, planning and innovation. Well, in addition to tools and analytical software, the process for innovation requires commitment, dedication, and discipline. It's okay to have tools for analysis and tools to help decision making, but there must be a commitment on the part of the management to implement what is suggested. There must be a dedication to innovation. It must be part of the culture of the organization. They must want innovation for it to happen. And of course, there must also be the discipline of wanting to see it through. Don't just start the project and then leave it. See it through. Have the discipline and the application necessary to generate an outcome. Successful innovations are a combination of commitment, informed decision making, a purpose or a goal, and a structured framework involving tools and techniques to support the innovation process. So it's commitment, informed decision making, not just guesswork, having a purpose, knowing what's needed and what needs to be done, and some sort of structured framework with tools, support, techniques, dedicated staff, interested staff, enthusiasm, all of these coming together to bring about the innovation. All of those coming together to bring about the change which is seen as desirable. Innovation planning involves all aspects of business activity. It cuts right across the organization, different departments. It doesn't matter what the organization is. It may be a solicitor's office or an accounting office, or it may be a HR office, set of offices. It may be a manufacturing plant. There still must be the commitment to innovate. There still must be the desire to do something more efficiently. There still must be an investment in checking what tools and techniques are available, how they can be used, how they can innovate, how they can change that environment and bring about greater efficiency. Innovation planning involves all aspects of business activity, from market research, business planning, looking at different techniques that are available, different apps, different facilities that are available to enable business planning to be more structured, more analytical, so that ideas can be tested out almost. They can be checked. They can be checked for realism and likely outcomes even before they have started. They can be tested out in the virtual world. It involves engineering, trying to get better machines or computer-aided manufacturing techniques or whatever it is. Looking at the design of the workplace, looking at the design of the product, looking at the design of the initiatives that take place. For example, marketing initiatives have to be designed and thought about and implemented. Looking at it and seeing can it be done better? Can some change be brought about which will enable it to happen more effectively? And I've just mentioned marketing, but the same, it overlaps with design. Looking at business management to see if the management structure is properly configured. Are there parts of the organization not effectively managed, or are there parts of the organization that are over-managed? Looking at the requirements for HR. Are the right skills in place? Right facilities for training and recruitment and for the day-to-day personal functions. Looking at finance and seeing what sources of support can be offered to the finance section to help them with payroll or help them with the management of the financial resources of the business. And looking at strategy, looking at different scenarios that the organization could follow and trying to dry run those scenarios, perhaps again in front of a computer terminal, in front of a monitor, and inputting different strategies and trying to see what influence or what problems may arise. Looking at quite sophisticated software which will help management to simulate what may happen, which at least will alert them to possible downsides in their thinking. Kumar in 2004 proposes an innovation tool process and toolkit, which can be used as a framework to help organization innovate in a structured and disciplined form. And we're going to spend some time looking at these ideas. And this is where his ideas start to kick in. So the innovation planning process, according to Kumar, well, he saw it as in almost four directions, four aspects to it: abstract, make, real, know, and in the center we have sense, intent. We'll talk about these and explain each one as we go through. But if we start to fill in what's inside here, we start with the know and the abstract. We can fill in analysis. It's what we know and what we can abstract, what we can think. And once we put in what we know about a situation, be it a change in the design of a product, or a change in marketing campaigns, or a change in the layout of the plant, or whatever it is, if we put in what we know and we start to think about what changes can then be implemented, we're starting to abstract. We haven't done anything, you see. We haven't changed anything, we're just thinking about it. So we're abstracting and thinking. We're putting in what we know into our very simple model at the moment, and then we are abstracting. We're able to play around with the ideas without making any concrete changes. In a sense, we're sensing. We're putting in what we know, and we're trying to sense what is the change we're talking about. If we're talking about changing a piece of machinery, we're getting a sense about, will it be more efficient? Will it justify the cost? Will it fit? What are its implications? We're starting to abstract, we're analysing, and we're starting to get a feeling about this new piece of equipment, which is we're only talking about it in the abstract. We're not talking about it in real. We're thinking about it. But out of this thinking and sensing, we're starting to frame insights. We're starting to get an idea of some of the downsides and some of the upsides associated with changing a piece of equipment or changing some process. We're just thinking. We haven't done anything. It's just in our heads at the moment. We're thinking about it. We're analysing it. We're starting to get an insight into it. And this insight it may be for it or it may be against it. Depends on how it goes. But we're starting to form opinions about this proposal as to whether we're for it or we're against it. If we go across from abstract to make, now we're moving from this idea, this idealization, this abstract world of the mind, where it was just in our heads. Now we're moving across to think about making. Making makes it tactile, perhaps. It might make it real. It doesn't have to be tactile because it could be a marketing campaign. So it's not necessarily like changing a machine. You can touch the machine, but you can't touch the marketing campaign. It's not real in that sense. It's not concrete. But we are moving towards exploring concepts. We're moving towards doing something, making, moving away from the abstract, from this just thinking about it, now to how we would operationalize it, how we would make it real. And we make plans, and we see if the plans make sense. We haven't done anything still. We're moving towards make it, but we're now making plans and thinking about it. And we've moved from the abstract into writing out plans, talking about it, having meetings, criticizing the plans, trying to improve them, but we're making plans. And that constitutes this movement from the abstract, from the mind, just thinking about it, to making it happen. We call that or Kumar calls it the synthesis, putting it together. We're merging those two parts together. Now, if we go across to the other side, we have the know and the real. Well, what do we know? Well, we know people. We know what their strengths are. We know what their weaknesses are. We know their abilities. So we know people. We may know customers, what they want from experience, from past marketing endeavors. So we may know people, we may know customers, we may know the production staff, we may know the staff of the organization, we may know what they like or don't like. We also know the context in which they operate, what precisely they like, and what context will they agree with some change as opposed to opposing it. So it's not just knowing the people, but we know people may have trigger points. You can take them along a certain way, but after a while they object. They've gone too far. They suddenly object to some change. So we need to know the context. We need to know how to get the people to move. This, of course, leaves us with the make and real. Well, sorry, that last bit is called research, I should say. Sorry. Now, the make and real, well, realize the offerings. Realize it, make it. Whatever it is. If it's something tactile, if it's something that's physical, make it. If it's a new machine or a new product or a change in an existing product, make it. It may be a different way of marketing. Try it out. It's realizing the offerings. Try to promote uptake. Try to encourage uptake. And try to encourage people to engage with the changes. And this is the delivery section. So now we have an innovation planning process as set out by Kumar. And it takes us from a very abstract, in the mind, thinking of change, all the way down to producing it, making it, delivering it. And we went through a period of doing some research. We made the jump between the mind, the abstract, and the real, making it. So there was a synthesis between the two. We transferred what we had planned into actuality. We had done this. Kumar's model identifies eight modes. He explains that the model does not follow a linear approach, even though he has numbered modes. It's not linear. Insofar as we're dealing with people and ideas, it's reasonable to suggest that we don't act in straight lines. We don't go from 1 to 2 to 3. We jump. We make big decisions sometimes, and sometimes small decisions, and sometimes we just tweak some situation and make it just a little bit different. So it's not quantitative. Some people come up with big ideas, some people come up with small ideas. It's all part of the same idea, the same process. We're innovating, and that's the process. Just some processes are very big innovations, some are quite small. In practicality and real life organizations, they don't follow linear processes, as I'm suggesting. And Kumar's model aims to offer a flexible model. We don't live in a very linear world. As humans, we have emotions, we have feelings, we have good days and bad days. Some days we're interested and some days we may not be too interested because we're human. And as a consequence of that, we can't say that innovation follows any particular mathematical development. If you look at the history, economic history of, let's say, of the UK, in the past, people lived on the land. It was what's known as an agrarian society. They lived on the land, and that was it. And they lived like that for hundreds and hundreds of years. Well, probably thousands of years. And then the idea of steam-powered machinery was introduced. It was a big change, a very big change for that society. And that meant that there was a big jump in innovation. And then we got used to, or we didn't, but our forefathers all across the world got used to steam-powered locomotion and so on. And eventually, people came up with the idea of electricity, or how to generate electricity, and how to distribute it. And it seems as if we move along without very much happening, and then suddenly there is a big jump. But in between, there are also lots of little jumps, but they are not in any particular mathematical order in terms of time or in terms of importance. This simply happens. Some innovations are big, some innovations are small. Steam power was very big. It changed the whole world. Electricity changed the world. Computers are changing the world. That's all we're going to deal with. It's a topic that's very important, and it's one of various videos that we're offering on the course. And we encourage you to view the others to get an insight into what we mean by innovation and how it comes about. But that's all we're going to deal with here, so let's leave it at that and say